Hi, this is Tracy Taylor. I'm with the Wasatch Taxpayers Association, and we're doing Heber City candidate interviews for 2019 primary. So today we have Ryan Stack. He has run before a couple years ago, but we're going to let him explain to us why he's running and a website where people can learn more about you.
Sure. Thank you, Tracy. Hi, Heber. I am Ryan Stack. And as Tracy mentioned, I'm running again for Heber City Council. You can find me online at stackforcouncil.com. My email is stackforcouncil@gmail.com, and I'm on Facebook at Stack for Heber. I ran 2 years ago, and I'm running again because I continue to believe that Heber needs a proactive voice on the council. Heber needs leadership on the council, members of the council who are willing to be meaningful participants in the discussion. And people who acknowledge the reality of what's happening around us, and at the same time wanting to preserve the heritage that we hold so dear, the culture and the charm of our town, and are willing to listen to you, the voters. And I'm running specifically because I want to honor those things, and I believe I've got the relevant qualifications to do it. I'm an attorney full-time for Summit County. I work in the prosecutor's office, and because of my legal training and background, I am comfortable looking at the codes and diving into the thorny legal issues. And I'm also currently the vice chair of a planning commission. I've served on the planning commission for about 4.5 years now, and so I'm very familiar with a lot of the issues that are coming up, and I look forward to working with you and with those issues if elected.
Great, thanks. First question is, what do you believe the philosophy is of this city council's role in appropriating expenditures, creating policy? Do you believe that the city council should be directing the staff and the manager to implement their policies and their decisions? Or do you feel that the city council maybe should just refer to the staff and the manager for recommendations and to just basically implement what is brought to them?
I think it's both, right? I think the city council is the body tasked with setting the tone and setting the policy and the long-term vision for the city, and working with staff to implement that vision. At the same time, I think that staff is full-time, city council is not. And there's a reason for that, because we want to make sure we're hiring the best people for the job in our city staff, and I think we're doing a good job of that. And once we do that, then we need to trust that they're going to do their jobs competently, and I think they do. And when we do that, we as city council cannot be in the business of micromanaging the staff, because again, they're full-time and city council's part-time. And I think those roles are divided like that on purpose. So it's important to let the staff do their job, but I think city council sets the tone. City council sets the policy. They should be setting the arc and the trajectory for where they want things to go. But at the same time, if staff identifies issues or is aware of things that are coming down the pipeline that council may not be aware of, then it's absolutely appropriate for staff to bring those issues to the council's attention.
So since staff is not representing the citizens like the city council should be, they're elected officials. The staff and the manager are not. So I'd like you to explain that a little bit more of what you think the role of the city council is to the citizens and implementing policies and spending the money of the city, and a little bit more of what you think the city council's role is in representing those citizens, and what, you are the elected officials.
So, right, the city council works for you, the people, period. And their job is to represent and be the voice of the people. And at the end of the day, if elected, my goal is to do what's going to be in the best interest of Heber, because that's who the council works for, is the people. And I think when it comes to, again, monetary issues, budgetary issues, the council is the one that has the final vote. There are only 5 voting members in the whole city that make those decisions, and those votes rest with the council. So literally the buck stops with them. They're the ones who are accountable to you and to the staff. And so they make the policy decisions. They ask staff to go forth with their ideas, follow their direction, and then the council is the one who makes the ultimate decision. That's the body who decides, who votes, and who appropriates the money how they see fit.
Okay. There's going to be a couple questions where I'm going to want a little more yes or no answers. I understand philosophies, but I think the citizens really, this time in our growth, people want to really know where you stand on some issues, and they have every right to elect somebody that reflects their feelings on it. So the first one has to be the airport.
Sure.
We're doing a master plan, but I need you to answer if you would ever consider expanding the airport, and if, you know, what it would take to have you vote to expand the airport. What would you have to see in that master plan to make you vote to expand the airport? Or would you?
So let's cut to the chase, right? Do I support airport expansion right now? No. I don't support airport expansion. I don't want to see more jets landing at the airport. I don't want to see bigger jets landing at the airport, period. That was my position when I ran 2 years ago. It continues to be my position. As you mentioned, there is a process underway right now, and it's one that the state law requires us to engage in and follow through. And so by going through this master plan process, the city is simply doing what state law requires it to. So where do we go from there? I think it's important to let that process run its course. I don't want to see the city get into a position where it feels like it has to take more federal money that ties its hands. I don't think that's being responsible. Similarly, I think the city should treat the airport in the best interest of the citizens. And the citizens have been very clear that they do not want that airport expanded. That's my position. At the same time, right now, we are in some pretty costly litigation over the airport. I don't want to do anything that's going to invite expensive litigation onto the city over the airport or any other issue. That is simply not a good use of taxpayer money and taxpayer resources. So I don't want to do anything that's going to get the city in the hot water with lawsuits. I don't want to invite expensive litigation. So I think we need to make sure that we honor the commitments that we've already tied ourselves to, unless the city attorney gives us suggestion otherwise. But as far as going forward, no, I don't want to see the airport expanded. I don't want to see more jets, and I don't want to see bigger jets, and I know you don't either.
Okay, thanks. The bypass. You know, we've been talking about this for a really long time, and, you know, the last year has been an eye-opener for the citizens and for our public officials, because we've had to deal with UDOT a little bit more closely. And so right off the bat, you know, do you think we need a bypass? I was just in a UDOT meeting, so, you know, they basically get to decide their routes. So I'm not going to ask you what you think your preferred route is, because I don't think it really matters at this point. They're going to do the report. But let us know, do you think there actually needs to be a bypass? And, you know, are you okay with us lobbying to try to get it done? Or do you think we need to protect Main Street businesses, and will that be an issue if we have a bypass?
So right now, there is a serious congestion problem on Main Street. And it's not forecasted to get any better. Almost every single study I've seen says traffic's only going to get worse on Main Street. And when we look at the possible range of solutions to address that congestion, right now the bypass looks to be the most promising option. So as things stand today, I do support a bypass, because that seems to be the best way to handle the forecasted growth and the congestion that's only getting worse. That said, I understand at the UDOT meeting a few nights ago, UDOT even said it's possible we could complete this study and we may not even recommend a bypass. We may say it's not necessary. So I think they repeated that point several times. So it's going to be important to look at what they come up with in their environmental study, read through it carefully, something I'm comfortable doing as an attorney, and see exactly what it is that they're proposing and they're recommending. Are they recommending a bypass? If not, then let's take a look at some of the proposed alternatives to deal with our congestion. If they are, then we go forward, and I think it's absolutely appropriate to be the voice of the people working with UDOT to find the best possible route for that bypass.
So do you believe there should be a bypass? I mean, do you see that in the future of Heber, or there are some people in our community that really just don't think it's a good idea to have a bypass. So there's definitely a segment of the population that doesn't want a bypass. Where are you on that?
Again, as things stand today, I support a bypass. I think it's the most feasible way to address the congestion that we have and the congestion that we're going to have, because every single study shows that the numbers simply aren't going to get better on Main Street. And I wish we could do something to make that change, but that's the reality that's facing our valley, and so we need to look at pragmatic answers to that. And so again, as it stands now, I do support a bypass. I understand there are some concerns about businesses, but there are two sides to that coin with the businesses. I look at the issue of the bypass. If that ends up being something that is necessary for this valley to deal with our growth and our congestion, I see it as only a possible win for Main Street. To pull additional traffic and congestion off Main Street that wouldn't be stopping otherwise because it's through traffic. And then we can continue to build and revitalize and redevelop our Main Street to be the crown jewel of this valley, which it really should be. And right now there are certainly some promising areas on Main Street, and there are some areas that need some work. And I think it should be a place that we're proud to call our Main Street.
Okay, great. We're working on a general plan update. We spent some money on Envision 2050 to hopefully get some public input. So we're going to be updating the master plan. And my question to you is, what's your philosophy of developers coming to the table asking for more density? Is that something you think we should entertain? Or once the master plan's updated, are you willing to stick with the actual new zoning and densities that master plan will be? And my question to you is, what's the point of a master plan if you're not going to follow it? So I think in the past we've seen developers come and get more density than what was already approved for that area. And so how do you feel about increasing densities once we have the master plan done?
I'd like to see the city follow through with the master plan process, the Envision Heber 2050, and then once we have something, I think it's important that we stick to it. And this master plan process, similar to what's happening with the airport, is something that state law requires for us to update our master plan. And I think we can all agree our current plan is horrifically outdated in light of what's been happening with the valley. As a member of the Planning Commission, I'm serving on the Envision Heber committee, the steering committee, and I've had the ability to take part in several of those meetings. And it's been exciting, a lot of the feedback we've received. I think so far we've had over 400 responses to the survey, and the city has been trying to get the word out for people to come take the survey. So please, if you haven't taken the survey, I think it closes on the 15th. Check out the Envision Heber website, and please do take the survey so your voice can be heard. It matters, it is important, and we want to hear from you. So let's let that process go forward. We had the night where everybody came and looked at the maps. The idea with the Envision Heber is that our general plan really should reflect what the participating members of our community desire, what they want Heber to look like in the future. So once we've taken the effort to get that input, and we've worked so hard and invested money and so much time into this plan, then once we have something, I think it's important we stick to it, and I think it's important that we have the vision and we have people who are willing to be leaders and carry out that vision now, so that way we can try and anticipate as best as possible some of those issues, right? And looking at even the Sorensen annexation, to be specific, I do not support an annexation like that coming in with any more entitlements than it already has under the county.
Great, thanks. You know, I think there's two different types of politicians, basically. Let's just put them in two categories, right? The politician that believes that they are representing the voice of the people. They try to listen to their constituents and try to implement the constituents' wishes. That's hard to say. And then the other politician is, you know, you elected me, and I maybe have access to more information than you do, and so, you know, let me do my job. Once I'm elected, you know, let me serve you, and maybe isn't looking for input from the public as much. Where do you fall on that?
I think it's important to be as transparent as possible and solicit as much public feedback as possible. At the end of the day, the elected officials work for you. You're the boss, Heber. And so it's important that we're being proactive to get the information out in the first place on the city's website and all the different way we can through social media to say, look, these are the meetings coming up, these are the issues coming up. I think there have been a lot of lessons learned with what we're seeing now with the utility poles, for example. But it's important if it looks like it's going to be an issue, right? We notice every meeting, but clearly that's not enough. It's important to get ahead of these things and invite the public to be meaningful participants to what the city is doing. We want to hear from you. We want you to be involved because at the end of the day, we work for you.
Great. I'm asking every candidate this question. Are there any conflicts of interest that you may have either with your job or anything, you know, any property or anything you might own that you feel might be a conflict? I know the mayor every meeting starts the meeting out asking, does anybody on the council have any conflicts on whatever's on the agenda? So I'm asking every candidate that question. Is there really anything, you know, that you can foresee as being any kind of conflict of interest for you?
Short answer, not particularly, but I would like to elaborate because I believe in transparency.
Sure.
I do work for Summit County full-time. I suppose it's within the realm of possibility that a conflict could emerge, but it's highly unlikely. I've spoken about it with my superiors at the county, and no conflicts are envisioned, and they're fully behind my running for office. The only other potential conflict, and this is something that are we okay?
Yeah,
okay.
We're good, sorry.
And there was an item on the Planning Commission agenda several months ago, and I disclosed a conflict and I didn't participate in that item in an organization where I serve as a board member.
Right.
And so I expressed my conflict and I did not participate in what happened there.
Okay, great. Is there any issue that you would like to bring to the table if you become a candidate that, or excuse me, a council person? Is there anything as you've been working on the planning commission that you see, wow, this would really help our city if we did this, straighten this out, or worked on this issue? Is there anything that you can see? You're in a unique position that you're actually sitting on the planning commission. So is there anything that you would like to see accomplished while you're a council person?
There are a lot of things I'd like to see accomplished.
Yeah.
I guess to be more specific, something that I've thought of as a member of the Planning Commission or things I've seen. I would, and this came up in the context of Envision Heber, I'd really like to see a lake-to-lake trail connecting Deer Creek and Jordanelle. That seems to be something that has a lot of support as we try and encourage all the entities in the valley to build out the trails plan. I think that should be a priority. As we continue to be confronted with requests to increase density or different types of requests for overlays that would allow for additional density, I've been thinking that the city really should be looking at some sort of a PUD ordinance, a planned unit development, because with a development of that nature, you allow the developer to cluster the units in areas, but then it forces much more open space. So I'm still thinking single-family homes, but I'm thinking much more open space. To find ways to work with developers who may already be vested and entitled, but at the same time preserve as much open space and get as much open space as possible. Because I haven't heard a single person say that they are against the issue of open space. And I'd like to explore that with staff and with the city council and see what sort of support there is for that, to work with developers in a way that maximizes our open space.
How would that work? I mean, since you brought up open space, I sit on the county open space board. So this is of interest to me. Do you see a way to make that work through the developer allowing that? Because that starts to get into some gray areas, I think, with giving them, you know, some benefits of open space and more density. So that's a touchy, you know, that's a delicate situation. Do you have an idea of how to make that work with a developer?
I know there are several other cities and towns that have ordinances of this nature, and I'm a big fan of stealing the best ideas. And so this is something I've been thinking about recently, and I'd like to have the chance to really explore what a lot of those ordinances look like, see what's working in different towns, and obviously stay away from what's not working. But where we are trying to balance so many different interests, I think at every planning commission meeting we hear you need to preserve open space, you need to encourage the development of moderate income housing, affordable housing. You can't tell developers no if they're vested and entitled. We have to make sure we're reserving certain easements and access rights. And so there are all these different balls in the air that we're juggling. And it's trying to, I'm a fan of trying to build consensus. And so I like to see what's going to work for everybody. Let's find a compromise, because if elected, I pledge to work with everybody on the council. I think it's important to hear everybody out and to work alongside everybody, and sometimes we'll agree and sometimes we won't, and that's okay. That's part of the process, and I think that's expected. But what people also expect is somebody who's gonna work alongside others and play nice in the sandbox, right? So that's my commitment to you. I'm not interested in alienating or isolating anybody. I want to make sure we get everybody's input, everybody's ideas, and that we do work together to find some sort of, where a middle ground can be reached, let's do it. And that's something I've tried to do on the Planning Commission as well.
Well, why don't you take just a couple minutes and tell everybody why they should vote for you, and go ahead and...
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Sure.
Heber, I'm running because I'm a concerned citizen, and I believe I have the relevant experience to do the job and do the job well for you. As I mentioned, I'm a practicing attorney, so I'm comfortable looking at codes, I'm comfortable with the legal issues, and I believe that gives me a unique background as the only candidate who is a practicing attorney to bring that to the table. Additionally, I've been on the Planning Commission for the last 4.5 years. I've seen a lot of different things come through the door. I have a good sense as to what a lot of the issues are and what's going on, and I want to be able to put that to use for you. Everything from being familiar with our zones and our codes to being a member of the steering committee within Vision Heber, as we solicit your feedback to say what should Heber look like in the next 30 years. I think it would be a fantastic opportunity to be able to continue to work on that envision process next year, as assuming the current council votes something in by the end of the year, then next year the ideas start working on some code rewrites. Our city has been in reactive mode for so long, and we simply can't do a good job when we're playing whack-a-mole with all the different issues that keep coming up. It's time to have somebody who's going to be a leader, create a vision, work together with the council to champion a vision, so that way we're not being reactive, but we're being proactive. And that way we can say, this is our plan, developers, this is what we've decided is our plan, this is what the people have decided is the plan. And I want to make sure that I continue to work for you. As a member of the Planning Commission just recently, I suggested that we put to a vote for you an issue of a bond to bury the power lines through Heber City. That really is an issue that should be decided by the people. I recommend the County Council do the same thing, or the County Planning Commission. That should be an issue that the people get to decide. It's much too important. And that's the type of transparency I support. And I really thank you for your time. I thank you for your time. Please do visit me online at stackforcouncil.com. Feel free to send me an email at stackforcouncil@gmail.com. Heber, thank you so much for your consideration, and I'd like to ask for your vote, and I think we can do some really exciting things together in the next 4 years. Thank you.
Great, thanks Ryan. And there's 8 candidates. There'll be more of these interviews, so we'll post them up on Facebook. So get educated before the primary. Thank you.